As a mom of young kids, we all know that we do not have 2 hours on the weekend to plan our week if we want to spend time and actually be present with our family. Even as a paper planner creator, I used to spend way too much time planning my week. Here's the system that I use in my essential planner to plan my week in under 30 minutes. Step 1, you're going to want to write down all of your appointments in the weekly view. Even if they're in your Google Calendar, you want to write them down on paper because that just ingrains it in the brain a little bit more. The next thing that I do in my weekly view is there's a section at the top for writing down your core desired feelings. So I have decided at the beginning of the year, how do I want to feel in certain areas of my life? How do I want to feel as I actually achieve goals or actually go about achieving goals? So every single week, I write down my core desired feelings to remind myself what I'm working towards. So this year, I want to feel ease, delight, impact, and vibrant. And then I write down one big task or goal that I want to tackle this week in the weekly intention or goal section of the planner. The next thing that I do is write down my body and wellness intention. So for me, that's working out 4 times a week and practicing yoga once a week. And then there's a section for gratitude. So I just write down one thing that I'm grateful for this week. Next thing I do is I update my brain dump page. So I look at my brain dump page from the week before and I cross off anything that I actually accomplished. Then I transfer everything from the brain dump page to the new one. The reason why I do this is so that I don't have to keep open loops in my brain and I keep them on paper on this brain dump page. So I transfer everything that I didn't get done and then I add anything new that has come to mind. So why do I do that? Let's go over the definition of what an open loop is. I'm going to read this out. So an open loop is any unfinished, unresolved, or incomplete thought, task, or commitment that your brain constantly tracks in the background. Because your mind registers it as incomplete, it doesn't feel completely satisfied because you haven't closed the loop. And that is silently draining your cognitive bandwidth, your thought process, where you can actually put your mind. And it creates anxiety. So I transfer open loops from one brain dump page to another so that I don't have to keep them in my head. If you're loving this video, I would love it if you could hit like and subscribe so that I know what type of content you want to see on this channel. I share planning and productivity strategies that actually work as a busy corporate mom who works from home and has twins. All right, the next step, let's call this step 4. You're gonna take all of the things on your brain dump page that satisfy that intention or goal that you set for the week. All of those little to-dos that help you accomplish that are gonna get mapped out in your to-do list section of your weekly view. The only thing you have to keep in mind is the rule of 3. So I never map out more than 3 to-do items a day. If I get all 3 accomplished and I have enough time in my day to tackle the next one, I'll go to the next day or I'll go back to my brain dump page and see what I could tackle. When I check those 3 things off the list, I feel so accomplished because I've only got certain blocks of time throughout my day that I actually have time to tackle these things. Okay, so once you have the 3 to-do items a day, make sure that you have non-negotiables. So for example, every single Friday I do online grocery shopping, so that non-negotiable is always in my Friday to-do list items. The next thing you're going to do is time blocks. I've got both Google Calendars up on my screen. I've got my full-time work and I've got my personal one. And I look at the screen and see where do I have these little time blocks that I can actually get things done. And then on my personal calendar, I will actually write, at 2 p.m. I am recording videos. And then as you go about your week, you're going to need to leave some buffer space because things are going to pop up. It's just how our lives are. As an example, the CRA wants me to justify my medical expenses for last year. So I need to do an audit. So I need to compile a lot of documents. And that's something that has popped up that needs to go into my to-do lists. So the rule of 3 allows you to have structure with the pockets of time that you have in your day. So let's say you drop the kids off at school, you make yourself a fancy latte, you sit down at your desk, and instead of going, oh my gosh, what am I going to tackle right now, and scrolling your phone for hours, you look at your to-do list item and you start tackling the hardest thing first, then the next, and then the next. I like to subscribe to the eat the frog scenario where you do the hardest thing first because once you get that out of the way, the other things happen much more easily. So if you want to see the exact planning system that I used, I've given you kind of screenshots of the planner, but I will link the 2026 planner tours so you can see the whole planner. I am now working on the 2027 version. This is actually the sample. So I'm doing an undated version so that people can buy it whenever they want throughout the year. And if you want to follow me on IG, my essential planner handle is @the.essential.planner. So I'd love it if you'd follow along the journey and grab yourself an undated planner when they're ready to purchase. Thanks for being here. Now go and live well, and I'll see you in the next video.